Well, this is first on WTOC Plus. True Crime Con is making its return to Savannah this weekend, and this year it's taking a deep dive into the world of cults. The event is put on by the Graveface Museum, and it's bringing together survivors, experts, and former cult members to share their stories. I caught up with Chloe Mannon, one of the Graveface Museum's co-owners, to talk about this year's event and why these stories fascinate so many of us. Here's an extended look at our conversation. Chloe, appreciate you spending time to talk with us today about the upcoming True Crime Con.
Yeah.
First off, just tell me a little bit about what it is.
Yeah, so we're hosting our second True Crime Convention. So we did one for the first time last year, and it was hyper-focused on the John Wayne Gacy case. We decided to go with looking at cults this year, just because it's something that's personally fascinating to me. There's such an interesting, way to approach looking into cults throughout history, and they're so diverse. So there's a lot of different perspectives that you can have, and that's kind of what we wanted to emulate in the actual convention itself. So we're bringing in a variety of people, ranging from ex-members of Heaven's Gate, a survivor of Jonestown, as well as to members of Love Has Won, who are still more so insiders into that movement and cult.
So Chloe, you're talking about some of the panels. Is that kind of what visitors can expect with this?
Yeah, you'll be hearing from different members of cults at one point or another. So we're going to have all these different guests, and we'll be speaking with them for about an hour. Each panelist will have an hour on stage to kind of go through what their experiences were like, what their lives are like now, and kind of what their perspective on everything is. And it'll end with a Q&A with the audience. So it'll be very engaging.
Sweet. So, Chloe, this year's convention's all about cults. Where do you think the fascination with that comes from? Why do you think that's such a pivotal part when you talk about true crime?
Yeah, I think it's just because there are so many different angles to approach it from. So there's, over the past, even just recent history, there's a lot of different cults, and there's a lot of different, extreme kind of levels of different cults too, and their behavior versus others. You look at Jonestown, and that was the largest loss of American citizens' lives until 9/11. And then you look at Heaven's Gate, where that also resulted in death of the members, but both got there a very different way. And so just hearing the perspectives of people that were actually a part of these things, I think is just very fascinating, because I also, just personally, I want to understand why, and how does somebody get wrapped up in this in the first place, and what kind of led them from point A to point B. And so I think that insight will be kind of reflected in the answers and the conversation that we're going to be having on Saturday. So, yeah.
So this year's convention at the Savannah Convention Center, but it's put on by the Graveface Museum. Bear with me a little bit. I've never been here before. Tell me a little bit about Graveface and what this place is.
Yeah, so the Graveface Museum is run and owned by my husband and I, and we opened it about 5 years ago. So it's a true crime and oddities museum. And what that kind of boils down to is we discuss and cover a lot of topics throughout recent history that lean a little bit more macabre or morbid. We cover a lot of dark history that includes cults, true crime, serial killers, as well as, sideshow history and roadside attractions, the paranormal, the occult. So kind of a range of topics that we find interesting and worth learning about that maybe don't get as covered so much in other museums, certainly, but it's all coming from our perspective of we just think that these things should be talked about and learned from, as opposed to burying them and pretending they don't exist, because dark parts of history certainly do. And it's important to also talk to people who were personally impacted by these things. So that's how we actually obtain a lot of information, as well as a lot of artifacts in the museum, is from getting to know people personally.
Chloe, for folks interested in heading out to a True Crime Con this year, how can they do so?
So you can get tickets on our website, which is gravefacemuseum.com. We're also selling them in the museum, so if you're in town and stop by, we do sell tickets here. And we will be selling tickets at the door to at the convention center as well. So plenty of ways to get tickets and get access.
True Crime Con 2025 takes place tomorrow, Saturday, at the Hutchinson Island Convention Center in Savannah. General admission doors open at 11 a.m. with panels running throughout the day, and you can get tickets online, or as you heard, you can also get them at the door of the convention.